All right, time for the TNG finale. I had to spend a while trying to decide what I want to say about this one because of the fact that this was an episode that was highly memorable for the way the story touched on certain ideas. What made it memorable was that one of the ideas was something that was so batshit that the writers have decided they wanted to forget that they ever come up with that idea, and I don't believe they've ever gone back to that idea ever again. Now, there are two things about this specifically that need to be addressed before we get into the bulk of the thing. One, it is not clear whether or not anti-time is actually real. At the end of the episode, it is revealed that the only person in the universe other than Q, and by Q I mean the John Delancey Q specifically, and none of the other Q are known to have knowledge of this, and Picard are the only two people who we know have memory of this happening at all. As far as everyone is concerned, it never happened. Which has, to many people, raised the question of whether or not it was real. Or was it some sort of like fantasy trip that Q caused Picard to experience without actually doing anything? So that because as far as anyone was able to discern, the events just weren't, nothing existed anymore. Whether, or in theory, the thing that happened in the ending would leave behind a tangible mark where you would be able to see a sort of anomaly in space. But I'll get that later. Okay, so what was it about anti-time that was so batshit? Well, actually, you know what? I'll get the anti-time thing later. Let's go with the other thing that's a major plot point. The outbreak of Terrellian Plague. Yeah. This actually has a surprisingly large effect on the plot. Okay, this is one of those excuse for things to happen kind of plot points. It's like, this is what the crew of the Enterprise is working on when the other thing happens. And this is the mission that gets sidetracked so that the other thing can happen. Yeah. Is it actually all that big of a deal? No, it really isn't. But again, it's one of those things where if you're sifting through plot points, Terrellian Plague is something that has come up as being, a problem that has been a serious issue for multiple interstellar civilizations. Like, how exactly, why exactly, we don't know, but whatever. Anyway, so moving on. Okay, so the anti-time anomaly is the core of the episode. It is seemingly created by Q tricking Picard into having three different starships focus their well, I'll just flick to the next tab. Anti-time eruption. Because the idea is that anti-time is somehow like parallel to normal time, and that what they did breached a barrier between normal time and anti-time or some shit. Using an inverse tachyon pulse. No, there is no explanation of what that is. Also, how do you use tachyons to do tomographic imaging? Because like tomographic imaging is a real thing. It's like it's you're basically scanning things in layers, and you scan one layer at a time in order to create a image of the entire object. Well, how does that work when you're scanning a temporal distortion? I don't know. Because they're not actually doing a multi timeline scan. They're actually just kind of sort of. It's basically a buzzword. The way it's used in the episode is just a buzzword. It's like, ah, yes, we're going to do a tomographic imaging scan of the temporal anomaly. What does that mean? Nothing. Anyway, I the thing with this sort of thing is that you need to have some sort of cool sounding sci-fi nonsense terminology, because real world words don't work. You have to use fake words to explain concepts that aren't real. Although in this case, they used one that's actually a real one, which is used in a way that doesn't make sense. Anyways, so how exactly does this work? Yeah, that's one of the parts about the episode that's kind of wonky, is that you do this scan, attempting to scan something and figure out what it is at three different points in time simultaneously. No, that phrase does not make sense, but that's what the episode said, is that you have three different um, tachyon beams hitting the same point in space at three different points in time, and that creates a anti-time effect somehow. Yeah, this is one of those reasons why a lot of people think that this is actually just Q causing Picard to have some sort of a weird um what's journey of discovery. Yeah, let's call it a journey of discovery, because as Q tells Picard at the end, the entire point of the lesson that he was trying to teach Picard was getting Picard to try to imagine something outside his human experience. The idea of anti-time was utterly alien to him, so Q wanted to force Picard to wrestle with the concept and try to understand how to handle anti-time. Now, this is actually one of those things where at the end of the episode, basically nothing happened. Like, you have like this entire double length episode where Picard does stuff, you see things in people, and in the end of the episode erases itself from history. That is honestly something I personally found to be rather distasteful, because like there are two things about the episode that are major things. One is the anti-time anomaly. Two is the sheer amount of time and effort they spent into looking at the landscape of the universe and how the anti-time anomaly affects that. Because one thing about this that was infamous is that this is a glimpse into the future of Star Trek. And, uh, this is one of those things where they don't really specify that it's actually the future, and Star Trek Picard horribly contradicts all of this stuff. So you could argue that either A, if we're going with the Q, is making shit up hypothesis, it's not real, it wasn't the future. It was just Q showing Picard something that looked vaguely convincing. I mean, let's face it, the Klingons taking out the Romulan Star Empire. Yeah, that was actually a major plot point here. Worf becoming a colony governor, also a significant plot here. Picard becoming an ambassador, well, that's actually something that happens in several things. That was something that got adapted into a lot of things, actually. LaForge having children. Yeah, they actually, okay, they used the names of 2 of the 3 children he's mentioned to have. They didn't use all of them, which I find to be rather interesting. Also, in the anti-time future, it's not explained who LaForge's wife was. They say the name Leia, but they don't actually say it's Leia Brahms. And also, we have reason to believe that Leia Brahms was already married and that Forge would have had 0% chance of actually hooking up with her. So, Also, like, Leia Brahms had been married for several years before meeting uh, LaForge, and it's probable she already had kids, although that's not something that ever comes up in either of the 2 episodes where she's mentioned to exist. Yeah, all we know about dang it. LaForge. It automatically, yeah, it's just that it's mentioned that she existed. That's it. Because like LeVar Burton wanted to come up with a character design for Picard, but that didn't go anywhere. So we have no idea what his idea was. All right. So what is there that you could actually do with this? Honestly, this is kind of sort of like the stereotypic type of a plot where you interact with your future self and like see the future in a way that actually kind of sort of doesn't affect the future. Although as mentioned before, there's a whole bunch of things in here that's kind of weird, like the fact that the Federation is kind of sort of at war with the Klingon Empire, kind of sort of, but not really, because they're able to get Worf to help them with shit. And yeah, weird stuff. Um, Realistically, having your players handle an anti-time anomaly is something that I don't personally think is a good idea. Unless you come up with a plot device for why it's not a galaxy-threatening event. Because one of the things that they point out in this is that the anti-time anomaly, while it at first glance seemed to be mild inconvenience, was in fact slowly spreading backwards through time so that it would actually destroy entire civilizations by causing their planet to cease to exist. Like it actually erased the human race by preventing life from ever existing on Earth. All life on Earth de-aged itself into non-existence as a result of the anti-time anomaly. And while they only showed Earth, presumably this was true of everything that got enveloped in the anti-time anomaly. And yeah, galaxy ending stuff. One thing I've personally done as a plot device in a story that is kind of sort of like anti-time, um, was to come up with the idea of having a grenade where the explosion travels backwards through time. So you set off the grenade and uh, something in the past gets exploded. Not the present, not the future, in the past. Realistically, as a plot device, that kind of works. It's something that's not going to envelop the galaxy. It's going to, destroy something and then fizzle out of existence. Not continually expand until everything has been annihilated. Again, it's a scale thing. It's like that was actually the thing about this that made the anti-time anomaly so bizarre is that in theory that rip in the universe would eventually cause the entire universe to cease to exist. And one thing about this that it kind of sort of glosses over is that theoretically the anti-time anomaly would like retroactively cause all of the things to cease existing. And they may have actually like name dropped that as like saying that like trying to contact the Federation didn't work because, oh yeah, that's right, you erased the Federation from existence. Because it's like the anti-time effect goes backwards through time and affects things in the past, but those effects that happened in the past change the past so that the new present is no longer the way the present used to be. Yeah, temporal paradox out the wazoo. And seemingly the three hero ships that are sacrificed in order to seal the rift uh, are the only ones available because they're kind of sort of protected from the um time erasure thing by being inside the temporal distortion or some shit. Yeah, also that was another thing that they kind of sort of mentioned is that um due to the anti-time effect, the people on board the ships that were trying to seal the rift were actually slowly being de-aged out of existence, so that if they failed, they would all lose the ability to do anything. Like uh, Geordi actually had his cybernetic implants fail because of the fact that the anti-time effect actually caused his body to regress to a point before the implants had been implanted, leaving him functionally blind. Oh, that was some weird stuff. Oh yeah, also they name drop Hetaoria because that's where Worf lives, and they kind of sort of don't do anything but with it. Again, that's one of those things where it's like they spent a significant amount of time discussing what the future was like with Admiral Riker on board the uh, new extra cool version of the Enterprise. Wait, where's the picture of that? Yeah, so that. No. Yeah, see, here we have Riker made up to look like an old grizzled veteran. And here we have the Enterprise D in a timeline where it did not crash into a planet as a result of getting into a fight with Betor and Lursa, and instead got retrofitted to this thing. Yeah, also in Star Trek Picard, they have the Fleet Museum version of it, which is basically just taking the wreckage of it after it crashed into that planet and like piecing it back together using a whole bunch of spare parts. Because quite frankly, yeah. So this, No, that was never going to happen because of the fact that the timeline is different now, which leans into the whole idea of uh, none of the events in All Good Things are real. That's the number one thing you need to wrestle with if you're actually going to use this in a plot. Was any of the stuff that happened actually real? And there actually isn't a definitive answer. The episode tries to present it as Q doing god level alien nonsense to cause Picard to experience things that are kind of sort of real but got undone so that they didn't actually happen. However, the logic behind that is basically that Q would literally have to snap his fingers to erase all of the damage to the galaxy. Because again, the whole like anti-time singularity nonsense was killing off every sentient species in the entire galaxy. And presumably would have eventually spread to the entire universe. Not a great thing, but that was the idea that they went with for the anti-time future. Quite frankly, I think this picture encompasses it best in terms of showing just how bleak the crisis really was, and why it was definitely something that needed to be undone, and why Q was a monster for tricking Picard into doing this in the first place. Because, yeah, despite Q trying to pretend that it's Picard's fault, if Q hadn't had Picard shifting through time the way he did and giving Picard reasons to have all three ships scanning that same spot with a tachyon beam, this wouldn't have happened. So again, whether it's is Q doing things for real or whether Q making Picard see things, it's all Q's fault anyways. Ultimately, this is one of the most Picard-heavy stories, and quite frankly, that's not something that I actually liked as part of the story. Everyone else is kind of just there. And the fact that it has us wrestle with like three different versions of the various characters is kind of interesting as well. Oh, and also it's like the past version of the Enterprise has Tasha Yar on it because why not? It is the Enterprise as it was in the first episode of TNG, so that kind of makes sense, you know? Alrighty, enough about this one. This is one of those episodes where the best part of the episode is the look at what the future might be. The look at the possibilities of the future was cool, and the rest of it kind of stank, honestly. I hated the anti-time idea, just in case I hadn't made that point clear already. The reverse time universe idea in Star Trek the Animated Series was probably a better concept because of the fact that it was just a different universe with different physical laws, and things didn't work the same way in that universe as in ours. So it having a reversed chronology concept, while bizarre and alien, is not as logic breaking as this is. Anyways, enough about this. See you guys later.